Okay, so I chose the Fagus Grandifolia for my final project, but it goes by the more common name as the American beech tree. The family for this species is the beech family, and it is an angiosperm, which just means that it's a flowering plant that makes seeds enclosed in a carpel. Its native range and habitat are very broad, ranging from southeastern North America all the way to the eastern Great Lakes. And the only problem was that it did not have a localized refugium, which caused a problem since it would experience environments that were not really favorable later on. And although it continued to spread at a constant rate and it found itself in an environment that was finally favorable, that being the eastern Great Lakes. Its species growth form are the tree species, specifically the shade-tolerant trees. This growth form allowed the Fagus grandifolia to withstand many conditions that were harmful. It was able to resist suppression, and it gave itself an upper hand against non-shade tolerant species. The Fagus grandifolia responds immediately to the smallest light source by going through small, short-lived openings in the canopy. Its life history is perennial. I remember this by relating that term to the word permanent. So it comes back year after year without having to be planted again. This is because their tough bulbs and rhizomes allows this tree to survive copious amounts of times in harsh conditions. This tree species allocates its effort to reproductive events by idioparis. It goes through multiple reproductive cycles over its lifespan. If it did not allocate its reproductive events accordingly, this could cause extinction because if it were to give all of its resources, just like this, if it were to give all of its resources at once during its time in a bad environment, it would most likely go extinct. But instead, if it were to give its resources a little by little each year, it is able to adapt and keep itself growing and expanding. This tree mostly outcrosses because it's shown it's more effective than selfing. Its successive chance of reproduction increases as it is used. Therefore, the tree is able to expand the distributive area more efficiently. Its gender system shows it's monoecious, meaning both male and female flowers develop on the same tree when the leaves begin to grow. And vegetative asexual reproduction is important for this tree because it allows the roots to grow off and branch itself from the parent when it experiences a stressful environment. So, for instance, if this tree was experiencing a stressful environment, it would be able to branch off its roots and start a whole new tree, and so on. So when it branches off from the parent in stressful environments, the beech sprouts have high mortality rates, but because they experience rapid growth and continual production, they make sure the mechanism of asexual sprouting is significant. Some environment variation it can experience would be being placed at somewhere in a high altitude. This could cause a problem now where weather and climatic conditions worsen as you go higher. And reversely, we were talking about it mostly outcrosses, but when this tree is placed at a higher altitude, it was actually shown that selfing is more efficient when placed at high levels because it doesn't know where to go to, because that the male and female are at the same spot, it's able to self-pollinate, and it's more efficient. So the Fagus grandifolia is cross-pollinated by the wind, and when the female fertile flowers mature, they are replaced by nuts with prickly husks. So it kind of almost looks like this. One sec. So when the female flowers mature from a leaf to almost like this, this enclosed seed right here. And it first turns, it's first green, and then when they ripen, they turn brown. The prickly husks also curl, and that allows it to almost cup the wind, and when it's in contact, that allows them to travel farther distances. Its seed dispersal mechanism does not only use the wind, but more specifically a type of bird called the blue jay. They are reliable seed dispersers because they always stay active in all weather conditions, and they travel far, so when they regurgitate the seed, it has a broad expansion of its own species now. The seed is perfectly targeted for birds because of its colors, and it ranges from a purple and red, and it's relatively small. The seed is enclosed in a small slit, but it's easy enough for them to break open with their beaks. The small slit located right at the tip of the seed. The seeds aren't odoriferous, and it doesn't really matter for birds because most of them can't smell in the first place. And this tree's phenology of flowering occurs around March to May, while the phenology of fruiting occurs around September to October. The phenology interacts with other traits the species has by taking advantage in the flowering and fruiting stages. Multiple cues are shown for the tree, like winter chilling, meaning it wants to know that the winter is done so it avoids any cold period. As a result, it won't waste any resources. Lastly, some of the environmental variation it may experience can be because of the soil, and it needs a loose, acid soil which can be well drained but can still retain its own moisture or from the moisture that it gets because of its shallow root system. And the root zone has to be free of compaction and grass competition, while it relies on a good flat soil for its horizontal growth in the roots. Any of these requirements that are not followed will most likely give the tree a harder time to evolve, or it possibly may go extinct. That is all for the Fagus grandifolia. I hope that this touched on everything, and thank you for listening.